All right, welcome to the Muscle Maturity Podcast, episode number 80. I am here with Samir Bannout, 1983 Mr. Olympia, Marcus Guerrero from Old School Labs, and I am John Hansen. And today, guys, we are going to answer some questions. We're getting a lot of questions from our people who watch the podcast, so we haven't really answered any questions in a while. Last week we talked about the Olympia and stuff, so figured we would just spend this whole episode just answering questions. So how you guys doing?
Not bad. Doing good. It's not as crazy as hot in here. It's been a little bit better. We have like mid 80, but the week before we had like over 100, 101, 99, 98. So
Wow.
weather is good. Yeah. But I bet you it's hotter in Florida, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been pretty much in the 90s all summer, but it is starting to. We're getting a lot of rain now, so it's starting to cool off just a little bit. So hopefully by next month it'll cool off a little.
You guys have a lot of humid. I know that.
Yeah, we got hurricanes.
How's Big Mark? Yeah. How's Big Mark doing?
I'm good. I was able to hang out with my grandma the other day, so I was happy to do that. Helped her out with her iPhone and Gmail storage and things like that. So it was fun. I got a good relationship with my grandma. So anytime I get a chance to see her, and I think at this point we mutually use each other. She said, "Hey, I need some help with my iPad. Can you? Yeah, sure, grandma. You want to meet up for some pizza?" So that's
sweet.
That was part of the week. Yeah, it was fun. I always enjoy that. I was able to catch John. I saw your episode with the Olympia TV with Sean Ray and Bob and Tarek. That was very excited. I was happy to watch that.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, cool to see what happened at the Rising Phoenix, and of course, y'all kind of talk about the Olympia a little bit too. So it was really cool to see the different perspectives and all that.
They need to have Jean at the Olympia. You know, Jean is an old schooler before all of these guys. I would love to see Jean doing major commentating at the O. Seriously, I think I'm actually going to talk to Don Solomon, ask him, come on, John Hansen been there, done that since day one. So, they can't have anyone better than you.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. Anyway. So
I want to wish
my dad. What's up these days?
I want to wish my dad a happy birthday today too.
Oh, happy birthday, Mr. Hansen.
Happy birthday, my friend. Really?
Samir,
how old now?
Didn't we do a podcast once at their house? Remember? And it was their birthday, I think, a couple years ago.
Yes, I remember that. I remember that. Your mom and dad says hi. Yes.
Yeah.
Remember. That about at least 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's 87 today.
Oh, wow.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Fantastic.
All right, well, let's jump into these questions. The first question says, when bulking up, how much cardio is necessary? Does it stimulate the appetite by doing it fasted? So what do you think about that?
If you want me to answer that, I wasn't really big on cardio myself, although I'm not against it, but it's all depending on your metabolism too. I mean, if you eat a lot, then it's in your best interest to do a little bit of cardio. But when I say a little bit, just to keep everything in condition, your cardiovascular system, it's necessary, and I think it's very good. But for me, for contest prep and stuff like, and really, during bulking up, I hardly ever did cardio. I didn't.
Yeah.
Sometime I did because, like I was hanging out back in the day with Mike Mentzer. Rest in peace. He would say, Samir, let's go for a bike ride. I'm like, okay. And, at the time I'm like a new kid on the block when you say, when Mike Mentzer asked you to come and do cardio with him, I went along. And so I was happy to be around Mike. He's, as you know, he's very intelligent. And he knew how to keep the balance. Mike Mentzer was one of the sharpest people out there. And one of the most genuine person. Really, believe me, Mike was a class act. So, I did some cardio with him. you know, I like I said, I wasn't a big eater, so for me, cardio like melt me. I evaporate when I do too much cardio, you know. So I'm not against it, but do it in moderation. That's my advice to people out there.
Yeah, when I bulked up, I mean, I started working out at 14. I was real skinny. So my problem or my challenge was getting bigger. And then when I was a teenager, between 16 and 19, I competed a lot. I was at teenage shows, teenage contests. I did 10
Mm-hmm.
shows in 3 years. So I really did too many. I did too many shows. And I was always
Oh
dieting
yeah.
for contests. So when I turned 20, I knew I needed to get bigger. So when I was 20 and 21, that's the years I was bulking up.
Mm-hmm.
But my metabolism was so fast, I had to eat like almost 5,000 calories a day to start gaining weight. I mean, my
Damn.
weight wouldn't move. I was eating a lot of food and I couldn't gain anything. So I had to actually go up to 5,000 calories a day before I started gaining weight. I didn't do any cardio at all. In fact, I made sure I did no other movements or no other exercise at all besides working out 4 days a week. I trained 4 days a week, but other than that, I didn't do any other outside activities. I took naps, you know, I just like totally conserved my energy because I couldn't gain weight. So I don't understand doing cardio when you're bulking up because you're bulking up to get bigger. Cardio is going to burn calories. So, but I guess some people do it to stimulate their appetite. I don't know. What do you think
I'm.
about that, Mark?
You could say I'm almost like you, John. Almost like you. I never really put any focus on cardio. Not at all.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time also gaining in the beginning too. So I need to preserve my whatever I eat. I needed to stay, active. I remember back in the days when I lived in Michigan, I had to take my whole bag of put a lot of food in my bag when I went to work. And back in the days, I worked at the assembly line in Wayne, Michigan, for Ford Motor
Yeah.
Company. I gotta eat, man. If I don't eat, I'll disappear. So
Yeah.
cardio would have been more, it would be more. The result for me would be it really wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
But I don't know about stimulating your appetite. I don't know whomever said that cardio stimulate your appetite. There's no proof of that. It's just someone probably says it. But
Yeah.
how? How could it stimulate your appetite?
Yeah. I never had a problem eating. I mean, I was eating, like I said, 5,000 calories a day. So I had to eat a lot of
Hmm.
food and I was probably eating like 5 meals a day, but they were all high protein, high carbs, even high fat. In order to get the
Hmm.
calories up, I had to eat a lot of fat. But I never had a problem eating. I always had a good appetite. But I don't know why people do cardio when they're trying to bulk up. It seems like you're going in two separate directions. If you want to bulk up, you want to eat more food and rest. If you want to get leaner, then you do more exercise and do cardio. So I don't know why you would do cardio if you're trying to bulk up.
I agree. I totally agree. And
What do you think,
like I
Marcus?
said, also in the past, I never really did cardio before major show. Any show I won, I did not do any cardio. Not for the '82 Olympia, and I was the most ripped in that year. Not
Yeah,
for the '83. You can ask all my German friends. Not 1 minute of cardio for the '83 Olympia. Not
yeah,
1 minute. Now we go back and say, is that the right thing to do? I think it is, but then uh, again, if you're a big eater and you want to do it as a part of a healthy regimen to keep your body working like a clock overall, yeah, but in terms of muscle conditioning and stuff, I don't think it's relevant. It's not necessary at all, in my opinion.
yeah. I'm the same. When I won the first Natural Universe, I didn't do any cardio, and when I won the first the Natural Olympia, I didn't do any cardio, and I was in great condition in both those shows. So
Hmm.
I think if
Hmm.
you can get in shape without doing it, why do it? That's the way I look at it.
Exactly. Exactly. How about you, Marcus?
Oh yeah, I mean, I kind of agree as far as it's almost counterproductive, and as far as when you're bulking, I know that kind of similar to what you were saying, Samir. Martin
Hmm.
Fitzwater, who's active today, really is about that. Like, didn't do any cardio leading up, still doesn't, things like that. So I guess it's just person to person. Obviously, there's somebody else on that stage who has to do cardio, probably once or twice a day just to be able to get into that, contest ready condition. But for me, I agree with you guys. I don't think it's super necessary aside from there's pluses like cardiovascular, heart health, things like that, I guess is, a good takeaway for it. Aside from that, I would say like metabolism or like digestive, health. So like one thing I still do is I'll take advantage of like at least like a 15-minute, 20-minute brisk walk after I eat. I'll still do that just to kind of keep everything, help it digest quicker. And I also usually run late to the gym. So like my meal, I want to get it kind of processed before I get in there. So I'm not feeling all nasty while my workout. So I'll get a little 20 minutes in of just like a brisk walk just to help with the metabolism and all that.
Yes. I recall back in the days too, I bulked up once, John, went up to 254 at my height. And back in the days, that's a lot of weight. And at the time, I was getting advice from Coach, who's a professor at UCLA. The guy is like a genius, Dr. Eric Sternlich. Actually, Eric, nobody knows this, but he did guide me, and he did guide Tom Platz at the time. When Tom competed in 1980, also was advised by Eric. So Dr. Sternlich was very, very intelligent. He did recommend some cardio first thing in the morning, but never 2 hours, never 1 hour, just like a small session, 25 minutes, 25 minutes. But, when you go up to 254 and you want to drop, so, I felt like a Goodyear blimp. I didn't get fat, but man, that's a lot of weight for me. I'm barely 5'7". So when I was 254, and God is my witness, I don't know why people doing what they're doing today. It was not used. I did not use any massive dose whatsoever. All I did is, I did the thing that we all know about, but I never abused. So, I started, John, I was going like 4,000. And then when I plateau, I went to 45. When I plateau, I went to 5,000. And then I ate. That's why I keep telling people, if you're training hard, you're training your ass off, you can eat. If you're training super hard, you can eat. If you eat like a bird, your body's going to adapt. Your metabolism is going to slow down. And so for me, also talking back to about cardio, for me, cardio was more like catabolic. If you don't eat massive amount of food, don't do it.
Yeah.
Is it healthy? Yes, it's healthy, but we're bodybuilder. We're not there like a marathon. Look at the marathon runner. They all look flat and they look flabby. Look at the sprinter. They all look muscular, shoulders ripped. So that tells you, high intensity, short duration is the way to build muscle. Excessive cardio, it depletes you and is going to make it look softer from my perspective. And did it do that to me? Yes, it did. So therefore, I didn't really need it.
Yeah.
I didn't need it.
I think cardio is a good addition to your diet, but it's mostly diet. And when I see people doing like 2 hours of cardio a day to get lean, I mean their diet's got to be off because
even 1 hour, John. Even 1 hour. If you do, John, I'm with you. Even 1 hour is too much. If you do like 2 sessions of 30 maybe. Use your head. Because scientifically, it is known after 45 minutes doing cardio, somewhere at 35 to 45, cortisol level elevate. When cortisol level goes up, fat burning stop. So what you doing? What are you doing? You don't need it. Do it for your health, fine, 15, 20 minutes. So anyway.
I do 20 or 30 minutes. That's all I do.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when Mike did cardio, we didn't go for 2 hours. I mean, he did. Sometimes he went really hard too, So he was like, and I was with Mike. We used to go to this place in Westwood called Good Earth. And, we had days where we go eat all out. I know we were eating the buns, the bread with butter during loading day. And now you got guys say, oh, I have a cheat meal. A cheat meal, my ass. Go eat all day. When you train hard and you watch your food, you can eat for a whole day and boost your metabolic rate. Let your body heal. And it's going to help you burn fat the following days. So
Yeah.
when I have fast, I have a cheat meal. I'm gonna tell them, shut up, cheat meal, cheat meal. You're not doing a cheat meal. You're doing yourself a favor by eating that day. Eat. Oh my God! Everybody wants to be scientific. So,
Right.
when you do so much science, and you're not winning any show.
Exactly.
Train hard and eat. Train hard and eat. Eat smart. I mean, we're not telling you to go eat Twinkie. We're not telling you to go live on Haagen-Dazs. Just eat.
Yeah.
Eat your rice.
Yeah.
Eat your potato. Eat your oatmeal. Eat your cream of rice. And if you
It's like that.
feel, yeah, if you feel like you're gaining weight and it's bad weight, then I would put a little cardio, a little bit. Believe me, even
Yeah.
when I went to that heavy, Jean, I wasn't fat. You could still see some abs, but of course I was watery. I looked like a potato. I looked too big. I hated my look at that time. I mean that's why I'm saying you look at Derek. Derek is so massive right now. I honestly don't think Derek is doing 2 hours on cardio. I guarantee you. Go ask him. He is not doing 2 hours of cardio. I don't know if he is doing it. Probably be small amount of cardio, if he is, if that.
Yeah,
so.
if he is right.
Yeah,
I feel like bringing up
I don't
the
know if-
cortisol, how it spikes, is a really good point. That Samir brought
Yes,
up.
it's
The
true.
fact that after you get up to like 45 to an hour plus, it's like your cortisol is going to rise, so it's just going to almost be counterproductive.
Right.
Go look it up. When your cortisol is up, your body stops fat burning right there.
Yeah.
So
I was doing a lot of things.
Have fun doing it. Don't you see some people like sit there and they're doing it and they're not happy. They're like, oh, I have to do it. Don't do it. Listen to your body. If you can't get in shape doing half hours, then something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
I mean, for God's sake, if you eat like a bird and you're doing 2 hours of cardio, I think forget it. Forgive me for saying that. Anybody that do 2 hours of cardio, I'm gonna say it, they're stupid. Stupid with capital letter.
Right.
2 hours. Why do you want to do 2 hours? Why? Use your head.
If I did when I was preparing for it, I would do like 3 days a week. That'd be it. And it would only be like, if I did it after my workout, I would do 20 minutes. If I did it in the morning on an empty stomach, I would do like 30 minutes. But never more than that.
That's right. That's about right. And John, not gonna bullshit you, and I swear on the soul of my father, the only witness to what I've done, my body fat dropped down to 2.2. And like I said, Mike used to say, oh, let's go do some cardio. I went along. So Mike, one day, he looked at me. I turned my head, and he sees striation here. He said, Samir, I would love to see what your body fat is. And I said, okay. So he said, I know this body accounting place in Orange County, which is about a half-hour drive from the gym. So I went with Mike. We did like hydrostatic underwater weighing. And Mike was around 5%. I was 2.2, Jean.
Wow.
2.2. This is also before I went to Germany. And I kept dieting, watching what I'm eating. So, and how much cardio when I measure at 2.2? None. Zero. So your body is burning fat. Right now, we're burning fat as we speak.
Right.
Your body is burning fat. Your body is a fat burning machine.
All right, let's go to the next question. Any thoughts on Mike Mentzer or Dorian's training system and techniques that has exploded in popularity over the last year? Oh, why it's exploded in popularity over the last year? Yeah, that's interesting because Mike Mentzer is really. I mean, when did Mike Mentzer die? 2000, right? 2001, maybe. So he's been passed away for almost 25
over 20 years.
Yeah. So, and he's really popular. He's popular among younger people who weren't even alive when he died, probably. So that's pretty interesting. Why he's still so popular.
Mike is a very intelligent person. He's legit. He doesn't bullshit you. He tell you the truth every time.
But Mike was popular.
I remember
like, I was a kid when he was just coming up. He was super popular. So he had something about him, his look, his training philosophy, all that together that made him popular.
Yeah, because you could tell the guy is straightforward. He's very passionate. He loved the game. I mean, I think Mike feeling got really. Uh, I mean, he was completely sad and could not accept the fact whatever happened to him in Sydney, Australia. I know he got the shit end of the stick, without a doubt. He got robbed. I'm not saying he should have won the Olympia, but he definitely got robbed. And so he put in a lot of work, and he felt like for people to walk all over him, he couldn't accept it. Um, you know, I remember we were doing a show in Nottingham, and we went to a health food store, and here where I met Dorian Yates. And Dorian said, "Hi, Samir, I'm Dorian Yates. I'm Mr. England." And I said, "Oh, wow, okay, big guy." That's before he even started doing anything with Mike Mentzer. And they connected around this time. I was around Mike for years, even even when he let go with competition. I was still hanging out with him. I just like him. To me, Mike is a very genuine person, very clean human being, And so, yeah, he did talk a lot about Arthur because Arthur is the one who really started that system.
Yeah.
Arthur is the one who took Casey Viator. I don't know. Many of you probably heard about the experiment. And Mike Mentzer around that time, he was also hanging out with Casey, and he went to, I think, was it D-Land, somewhere in Florida. And I didn't go there. I met Arthur one time in Cleveland, Ohio. He was there to watch the Mr. America when Ron Tufel and Tom Platz clash. I don't know if you remember that one show.
Yeah.
And so, but let's put it this way: Arthur Jones is a genius, and Mike Mentzer put more icing on the cake because they work together, and yeah, the system does work. This is what I'm telling people: when you train hard, you can eat. You don't need to spend hours and hours in the gym. I mean, I know honestly, Mike's workout was short. Dorian, he'll tell you the same thing. Dorian, he does, I don't know how much, 25-minute workout, and he's done. So the bottom line, you can put it that way. You have an airplane that fly from here to New York, 5-6 hours, and then you have a Mach 5 or Mach 6 or Mach whatever, and you get to New York safe. So the high intensity system does work. It does, as long as you go to New York and you land safely. Now people say, "Oh, you don't get as ripped when you follow the system," and I will say that that's bullshit because Dorian proved it. He was hard as a nail. I know, but I think there's one thing when in the very beginning, I like the early Dorian, the first 2-3 years when Dorian, after Night of the Champion, he started looking really, really incredible. I like Dorian when he was about 10, 15 pounds lighter. When you start to get bigger, same thing happened with, let's say, Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler, the first 2-3 years was unbelievable. Then he followed the wrong path, and he did end up a little blocky. We can't deny that. So Mike was doing the right thing, and I agree with the system. I always, personally, I went by how I felt. I didn't do like a short workout, 15 minutes. Sometimes I've gone like, you say you go to failure. Yeah, you got to push yourself. The bottom line is intensity. If you can do high intensity, short duration with weight that you can handle properly, that's the way to go. That's the right way to train. Right?
Yeah. So for those of our younger listeners out there that don't know what Mike Mentzer's system was, like when I started bodybuilding, everybody, this is in the late 70s, So everybody was training 6 days a week, and everybody was training like Arnold was, and Arnold was doing like 20 or 30 sets of body part. That means every body part. So he was doing 20 sets for chest, 20 sets for back, 20 sets for biceps, 20 sets for triceps, training 6 days a week. So it was a lot of volume. And that was just accepted as the way to train. And then Mike Mentzer comes out, and I remember I have the magazine. It was the first muscle builder I ever bought. And it was in I think it was in 1976. So Mike had just competed he competed in 1975 Mr. America, and he got I think second, I think. But Joe Weider liked his look, and Joe Weider put him on the cover. And so they did an interview with him. And I remember the interview because the guy said, how do you train? And he said, well, like for chest, I'll do 5 sets. And he goes, 5 sets an exercise? He goes, no, that 5 sets for the whole body part. And the writer goes, what? He goes, you're doing 5 sets for the whole body part? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, how often do you train? And he goes, I only train 3 days a week. He goes, how long do your workouts last? And he goes, like a half hour. So he introduced this whole new system of training. And like you said, Samir, it was like really introduced by Arthur Jones. Arthur Jones had this high intensity training program in the early 70s. And then that's where Mike Mentzer learned it. So then the next year, Mike wins the Mr. America. And then he's like a top competitor, and he's in Joe Weider's magazine, and he's got this great physique, and he's talking about this new training system. And one thing he said, this totally went against the grain about the way everybody was training, because everybody was training high sets 6 days a week. And I remember Mike said, he goes, you can either train hard or you can train long. You can't train both. He goes, it's like trying to sprint a marathon. You can't. If you're going to go all out, you can't go a lot of sets. He goes, if you're training 20 or 30 sets, you got to pace yourself. You can't go all out. And that made total sense. And I remember me and my training partner at the time, we cut back on our sets, and we even cut back on the amount of days we trained because it made sense. We didn't go to we weren't doing like 5 sets of body part like Mike was, but we definitely cut back. We cut back to from 20 sets. We went to 12 sets or something. And we did make gains, and we took more rest because we were training harder. Yeah. Because you're conserving more energy and you're training more intensely. And so the system does make sense. Now, Mike was doing it too. He was trying to push it to the degree where he was only doing 1 set an exercise. He would train, he would do a couple warm-ups, and then he would just do 1 set to complete total failure, try to get all the muscle fibers in that 1 set, and then that was it. And then Arnold would always criticize Mentzer, and he would say that kind of training system is not going to build a championship physique, because he goes, if you want to train your back, you have to train your upper back, you got to train your middle back, you got to train your lower lats, you got to do exercises for width, you got to do exercises for thickness. Same thing with your bicep. You got to train your upper, you got to train your peak for the bicep, you got to train your lower bicep. So Arnold was saying you got to do more exercises, more sets. So that's always the high volume, low volume. Low volume is just training as intensely as possible with low sets. And then high volume is doing. Now, I see a lot of younger people in the gym, and I don't know where they're getting their information from, but they're doing a lot of volume, and they're not training hard, but they're training if they're on a machine or something that I want to use, or they're on a bench, and I'll say, how many sets you got? Some of them will say, I don't know, I just started. I've got they got so many sets. I had to ask this one girl, she was on this cable. I said, how many sets you got? She actually got her finger out. She goes, 1, 2, 3. I got 9 sets left. They're doing so much volume, and there's just no intensity. And I don't know where they're getting it. I don't know where they're getting this. I don't know where they're picking this up from. What YouTube channel,
I know what you're saying, John. I've been through this. I said, people, how many sets they have? 5 more. I'm like, can we jump in, train with you?
Right.
Then some guys would go and said, listen, you train with this guy. He's former Mr. Olympia. It should be an honor for you to let him jump on board and train with you.
Right.
But, I think people don't know what's going on. A beginner won't know. But the bottom line is, I tried both systems. Look, I trained with Serge Nubret. Now, Serge, he does similar to Arnold, basically high. He does 25, 30 sets for body part. Personally, I don't think it's necessary, honestly. So what I did, I did the happy medium. I did high intensity, shorter duration, but I didn't do only like one or two set. So
Yeah.
I decided to go, okay, well, Arnold does 25-30, Serge Nubret, which I trained with Serge for one contest prep for the 1979 the professional Mr. World. Wasn't it best in the world contest
Best in the world.
in
Yeah.
Warrington? And honestly, I was full and completely melted. This the way Serge trained. It wasn't suitable for me. It was like the diet because we're both. I think if I was eating 5,000 calories, it probably would have been okay. But I followed Serge's diet too. I won that contest because I had the pretty physique to win. You know, otherwise, if you look at guys at the time, Greg DeFaro was a huge and muscular.
Yeah.
But I had the physique and I was cut, but I was flat. So for me, it works a lot better when I did like maybe 10, 12 set per body part.
Yeah.
10, 12 set for me, approximately. I don't count set and reps, but I did between 8 and 12 approximately. But I did kill it. And I went heavy. And I went by how I felt. I have days where I can come to the gym and I reach 450, even close to 500 on the bend over row. I felt like doing it. And not to do it because I'm going to show off. I really felt strong. And when I did that Serge Nubret system, I felt like a weak pencil neck. I was completely drained.
Yeah.
And with the system, John, it was like more like keto dieting. It didn't work for me.
Carbs.
I mean, that system could work if you eat 5,000 calories and you eat tons of fat, like Vince Gironda used to recommend, high fat, high protein. But with Serge, I didn't eat a lot of fat, and I couldn't eat 2-3 pounds of steak. I remember having lunch with Serge and Berto Fox at home in my house. Berto Fox would eat a steak is about like 4 or 5 pound man, I swear. T-bone steak, this is huge. He'll eat it. I could only eat maybe about 7-8 ounces, maybe at the most. There's a little bit of salad. But that kind of eating was the system I was following with Serge was not sufficient enough for me. I needed at least 2-3 times that caloric intake. But I still won. I lost at least 15 pounds of muscle, but I still won the show. That was, the thing. And then later, I started hanging out with Mike Mentzer after that contest. And Mike, he saw that I have a lot of potential. And so, Mike, I would train with Mike for the 1980 Mr. Olympia. I would be around Mike a lot. But I'm sure Mike wouldn't give me every piece of advice necessary because I know I was dangerous. He knew I was dangerous. He also knew that if I came in shape also, more likely I could take his check too. I mean, some of those guys were friendly to me, but they didn't tell me the total detail about electrolyte management. That was where it was my mistake. Remember, they used to make fun of Samir. Samir's holding water. Samir this, Samir that. And one of them, Ricky Wayne, used to write a lot of bullshit. And they all Rick Wayne was one of the most envious guy out there. Ricky Wayne, who one of the champion that I admire, he didn't like the fact that, okay, this kid Samir is coming in from overseas already making noise and he's going to be a superstar. And so anyhow, it's a long story. I don't want to be negative about Rick Wayne, but, the system Mike Mentzer followed, it was really good and it was effective. And yes, Dorian Ace proved it. I proved it. 2 years later, I did well. I mean, I got to the point where I won the Olympia. I had plenty of muscle when I won the Olympia. And, with the minimum amount of gear, I wasn't really using a lot. And a lot of people say, oh, Mike was using this much. Dorian was using this much. I don't think these guys abuse drugs like what these guys doing today. It was like hardcore training and the system works. The bottom line, the system works. the high intensity, short duration is a good thing. It is suitable for me too.
Hey, Marcus, why do you think it's so Mentzer's system is so popular now?
I think it's just because the microwave era that we are in today, just how TikTok works. I mean, you see it in every other area of like, how the gym is and how fitness is. It's why everybody was copying a C-bum haircut or a mustache and things like that. And it's great to sometimes see some of those old things. And, especially for me, someone who I'm a big fan of the old school and, of old school labs and classic bodybuilding, see it come full circle. But I think it's just the era that we are in. We're in an internet era. And I think a lot of people tend to just kind of follow suit, which is why we see, even though Mentzer and Dorian Yates out training is, it's incredible. It has its place 100%. But I think it's just because we're around so many people who just tend to follow. I really think that's what it is. It's just people who follow. I think sometimes it's kind of how you're saying you need a happy medium. You take from the Arnold, the Surge, you take from, the Mike Mentzers and the Dorian Yates, and then you have like your formula. But yeah, I just think it's the era we're in. I think it's a lot of, sheep. It's a lot of people who just kind of are okay with following. And I get that being a newbie, right? So like I can attest to that. So I think Samir had mentioned something about being in the gym and, hey, you'd be, you should feel honored to work in with this. And I think that's important for like both, people groups is for the older people, the ones who know, and, they know, like y'all have to look at the younger generation. And I get it. Like y'all are stupid, y'all are like this, y'all are idiots. And it's because y'all have already been there. Y'all have already been through the war. You're true and tried. So I feel like whenever that generation can come in and really like teach and, hey, maybe if somebody's doing something completely wrong, hey, can I work in with you? And then spreading some of that knowledge, that would be like the most bang for their buck, because you're kind of teaching the youth, the next generation, how to do it correctly. Because like, I remember I was in like that YouTube era to where like I was watching the Kai Green videos with the Muscle Meds hoodie and, what he did, I would try to go copy. And I just know that early on, I didn't understand a thing. Like it would be like, 3 sets of this. And I didn't understand that because I didn't like, okay, 3 sets, but then they're not really talking about their warm-ups and things like that. You don't really know that coming in being new to it, which is why I feel like people are like, either they do too little or too much. So yeah, I think just kind of teaching the youth and being, we kind of talked about it earlier with, Ronnie Coleman, doing videos with like the newer generation YouTube people. And I feel like that's great, but it's also like, it's only great if you're actually spreading the correct message. If the person who should be the voice of reason is actually doing so and, spreading their wealth of knowledge. But I just think it's the era we're in, honestly. Like, I'm grateful that it is who it is. Like, clearly Mentzer is like an incredible guy and, but it could easily be somebody else who did everything wrong. And that's what we see. That's why we see the younger generation doing a lot of things like incorrect. So
well, I like what you said too. Finding the happy medium is very important. Finding what works for you is important. But then many guys today, they do exercises, it does not work for them properly. You got to understand how to do certain mechanics that fit your need. You could do the wrong exercises, which going to give you, let's say, a huge teardrop. It's going to make your legs look ugly. You have to understand what's needed to patch that area. You got to be an artist too. So doing things off the wall, some people get lucky, but if you understand what's going on, let's say, if, some people would work bicep the wrong way, then end up building a huge outer head or inner head. You have to understand mechanic. And so, yeah, it's true that high intensity, shorter duration, to me, it's probably the way to go. But you don't have to limit yourself to doing like what Dorian doing exactly or what Mike Mentzer did. But that concept is effective. Why spending an hour and a half in the gym where you could do it in like half an hour or 25 minutes? So that's what I've always done. And it seemed to have worked perfectly for me. It worked really good. High intensity, shorter duration. And that's why it's popular, because it's effective, John.
Yeah.
So what would you say to the person who's like kind of in the middle to where like, all right, so they would hear that and hear, okay, like I have a overdeveloped teardrop, right? Or say there's different heads that you can hit in the bicep or whatever. And so now I have to do even more, like, like a lot, because in bodybuilding, a lot of us become very obsessive. So we're like, oh, wait a minute, we have to do this exercise and this one to hit this head, that head, and so forth. So like, what would you say to that person who's going to probably do way more volume or, way more reps or sets just to try to cross other
When you
T's and
build
dot their
that,
I's?
when you build the house, you want to have a beautiful balanced house. You could have like a huge living room and a baby bedroom. Come on, make the bedroom matches, make everything, make it completely perfect all around. So you have to understand, like when you work calves, how can you work the outer head? How you can work the middle? How you can work the inner head? Same thing with your delt. Same thing with your bicep. So being a good engineer does matter. And some people don't really pay attention to these things. That's why sometimes you see a guy with big legs and like big front quads, and then the hamstring is weak, or huge quad, and maybe so. Some people are fortunate that they didn't really need much because they're already built like that. But you can affect. You could do what's needed for you and work the area that it's in need. Stuff that you don't need, don't do it. Why would you want to do, let's say, if you have a huge biceps, why do you want to do more biceps and keep your biceps look like tiny? You have to understand how to create balance too. So that's why a good coach, good personal trainer, or masterful coach would tell you these things, what to do. Now I have a kids I'm training, he's having problem gaining certain area. We start to make some changes. Do this AM, do this PM, and let's do ABC, whatever. And the kid is responsive right now, and is very happy with the progress. And it's not by doing too much. Sometimes you gotta ease up in certain area and work harder on another area. So you have to understand, you got to be in the driver's seat, and having a good coach that can put you in the driver's seat is so necessary. I mean, let's say, for example, I'm going to talk about Nick Walker. I always talk about Nick because I know he's passionate. He's been really trying very hard. He brought his body from looking more blocky, not ripped, huge, but it wasn't him. Now he's more impressive. He's got that hard looking body. There's only one thing that he needs to do yet is learn the mastery of positioning. If he does that, that's going to give him a couple notches higher yet. And everybody's saying, oh, Nick Walker, is he going to make the top 5? Honestly, I think he could. He could. I think he's going to have one of the hardest muscle up on stage. Maybe he's not as blessed as Andrew Jack, with the total flow or what Samson have, but he's going to make up for it for more quality and hardness and massiveness. If he focus on creating line with that body that he have, he's going to stand out. He's going to really easily stand out. So really, it's important to do all these things. It's in training, you need to create balance. On stage, in posing, you need to create balance. Your attitude on stage, you need to find a way to make it more, like, for example, I'm going to go from one thing to another. Yesterday, I was looking at Hunter Labrada. I saw some photo of Hunter. Like a couple weeks ago, I wasn't convinced. But I studied those photos of Hunter, of his back, for example, and the way he positioned himself and he started posing. So right away, I took that photo and I put it in my story, because now I see that Hunter is listening to the expert that been there, done that. It's very important to learn from expert. His father is an expert. His best friend, Keith Klein, who was a major coach, he's an expert. So when you work with these people that have been there, done that, it's only going to give you that additional edge. I think Nick Walker needs to do something similar. He needs to create more line with what he has. And believe me, I'm not just saying that. I'm not against anyone, and I don't favor just anyone I don't have anything negative toward any of the athletes. I love to see the winner really win. But when I look at guys like Nick Walker and see that what he has done with his body, I'm very impressed. He needed to work on that little bit of more creating line. If he does, it's for sure he's going to be in the top 5. Now, talking about Hunter, what I saw in the past couple of days, I just wrote a message to Keith Klein. I said, Keith, I'm happy with what Hunter doing. I think this time is listening to you guys. So it's important to associate with people that's going to help you learn from experience. Experience does matter. Okay? And there's a lot of pretender out there pretending to be opposing coaches. No, the good coach will tell you what's suitable for you. He won't tell you to do this, to do that. Maybe this and that is not for you. A good coach will tell you what's needed. So anyhow, I don't know why I jump into this topic now again. But I get carried away, right, John? Yeah, but
right.
the way Hunter's looking, I'm very impressed. I think he's going to do very well.
Yeah, he looks really good. We'll see how he does next week.
He needs to get a little harder yet.
Let's do one more question. Did the classic division ruin raw talent for the open class? Does that say new talent or raw talent? I can't tell.
New talent.
New talent for the open class. So is the classic physique division taking away talent from the open bodybuilding?
I think somebody mentioned this in the comments, and I think it's actually kind of a good point to the last video about kind of like what the classic division is doing, and more so what's happening to the open, and the fact that it's becoming, kind of how we were talking about the whole difference between like an Andrew compared to, the shorter, more, I guess, stubby bodybuilders like Hadi or Derek, like the 212 ones. So I feel like you could say the same thing. I mean, all these classes are definitely making a difference in another one. Like, so for instance, 212, I mean, hey, that division, we could, if we didn't have that division, there's a chance we could have never had somebody like a Derek or a Hadi or even a Bonac. But I also think it was a building block for them too, to get up to that next level. So I guess it's, it really just depends on how you look at it. But I think it's a really good, solid point as far as like, the classic division, because it's like, if you're beautiful and you have this type of physique, go to classic, and if you're this way, go to open. And I think they both have rightful place, but I think it's like an incredible point, because you can see that, because look how we kind of view somebody like an Andrew or a Samson. I'm even guilty of it, to probably like, but they need more of this and more of that, when it's like their bodies are incredible. Like, I would pick those.
How about if I say this? It may sound funny to some people out there, but to me, Andrew Jacques got that beautiful body. It looked classic to me, massive classic. I mean, I can't help but telling you how I feel about guys who's massive but pretty. So what would you consider? I really consider Andrew Jacques Mr. Massive now, and have that classical look, that pretty body, okay? And let's for example, I know people favoring classic, and that's why you have that people start talking about Andrew Jacques. I would also say, if we get Samson to get gnarly, shredded, and he lose 15 more pounds, in my opinion, get carved in like a rock, have that classical look too. I don't know what to say yet about classical, other than people who's classical, like Chris Bumstead, have small waist, tight midsection. So Andrew Jacques came in with a tight midsection. What do we consider him? Both? Classic and what? So, I prefer the classic look. I really do. And that's why, Jean picked up Andrew Jacques to be the winner. And you know what's funny? I talked to Chris Aceto. Out of nowhere, Chris Aceto called me 2 days ago. We started talking. And I said, hey, Chris, you and John already in agreement. Chris, he said, honestly, not because I'm training him, but I think he could be the next Mr. Olympia. And so what do you want me to say? And I said, honestly, I'm very impressed, Chris. Then I said, look, it's going to be between him, again, same top four we discussed earlier last week. So unless Derek comes in super, super shredded, he's going to have a difficult time. I'm sorry. But I've already said it weeks ago, months ago, that Derek, with his physique, he get that hardness. Wow. So anyway, back to the classic. I think the public overall out there love that kind of look. This is the way to go. That guys like Andrew Jack is bringing back that beautiful looking body, and I'm glad he's working with Chris, because Chris and I always on the same page with what we do. Okay, and I have to say, Chris Aceto is a capable coach, and now I feel safe that. Look, for example, look at the Brazilian, the Dino. What's his name?
Ramon.
Huh?
Ramon.
Sorry. Ramon is another bodybuilder. Then look at the beautiful body. Okay, he's a big guy, but small waist, beautiful physique. He's working with Chris too. Now I can see guys like Samson comes in 7, 8, maybe 10 pounds lighter with that small waist. I would consider a massive classic. Come in with a small waist, small hip, carved, and to me, that's classical look. Anyhow. So yeah, the general public do favor classic because it's the way to go. The beautiful physique always, more attract people. Attract me, that's for sure. So how you say to that, John?
Well, I just don't like. I mean, I understand why they did it, but I don't like all these divisions in bodybuilding. And I think, to me, classic is bodybuilding. I mean, it's not a different division. And now we got different criteria for open bodybuilding. Now, open bodybuilding is more mass. Bodybuilding is mass, symmetry, shape, and definition or conditioning, whatever you want to call it. That's what bodybuilding is. That's what it always has been. Unless you're going to change the definition of what bodybuilding is. So classic is now focused more, I guess, on symmetry and shape with a smaller waist. And then I guess open is more focused on mass, but it shouldn't be. It should always be about shape, symmetry, mass, and conditioning. Always. It should never have changed. It should never change. So now, like Andrew, they're like, oh, well, as great as his physique has
290
has been the last
because of his
years,
weight.
Yeah, but now they're saying, they were saying years ago, oh, he needs to be bigger. He needs to be bigger in order to compete with like Derek or Hadi, or his limbs are too long, so he needs bigger arms and bigger legs. Well, yeah, maybe he did to beat, but now he's got that size, and they're like, he's not going to beat these other little guys. But he's got everything he needs. He's got everything. He's got the shape. He's got the symmetry because he's got the height. He's got the small waist. He's got the mass. He's got the conditioning. He's got all the ingredients. So that to me is what bodybuilding. That's not classic. That's bodybuilding. So they got to stop. They're categorizing things so much now. It's like they look at a guy and go, "Oh, he's classic. Oh, he's bodybuilding." And they're just like putting him in categories. To me, bodybuilding is bodybuilding. That's why I think if Bumstead made the transition over to bodybuilding, he could do really well. Now, maybe the judges won't reward him well, but he's got the physique, and if he gets bigger, if he needs to be bigger to compete with these bigger guys, but he's got the physique. He doesn't need to change his physique in order to go into a different class. I just think it's stupid.
What if you bring Arnold Schwarzenegger back right now to the stage at his 28, at his all-time best? What would you consider him, bodybuilding or classic? What would you consider Sergio Oliva?
Yeah,
they have that classical look. They have a tight midsection. They're beautiful.
Right.
Frank Zane was a classic. He was an open bodybuilder. Now they consider me classic because I'm under 200 pounds when I won 196.
Right.
But remember, when I won, I beat guys who were like 240 and 250. And Fox was almost 220. And so
that's a great point,
Samir,
because if you go back to those days when there was only one class and there was only bodybuilding, they had to look at a variety of different physiques. Like when you won, You had Bertil Fox, who was massive. Then you had Muhammad McAway, who was smaller. Then you had Zane, who was more symmetrical. So you had all these different variety of physiques, and the judges had to look at everything and say, okay, how do we place them first through sixth? But that's also when they had different rounds, and they had the symmetry round. So they were looking at the body as symmetry. So that means you're standing relaxed. Now the body looks different when you're standing relaxed than when it's posing. And you can tell more the skeletal structure, you can tell the proportions, you can tell the aesthetics when they're just standing relaxed. So that's why they had a symmetry round. And then they had a compulsory posing round. Now you're doing the compulsory poses. So now you're judging different things. Now you're judging more muscle mass, how it flows with the body, the condition. You can see the condition more when they're posing than when they're relaxed, right? So they were judged on each round. Now, if they had that today, Andrew Jack, I'm sure, would place high in the symmetry round because he's got great symmetry. So does Samson Dauda.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Derek and Hadi don't have good symmetry, but I think Samson and I think Andrew would place higher than those guys in the symmetry round because they have a more symmetrical look. But now they've eliminated the symmetry round, and now they just judge the whole show on 7 mandatory poses. That's the whole concept now.
What was Chris Bumstead weight approximately? It was nearly 250, correct?
I think it's 240 something. Yeah.
240? Well, that's
so.
at least 10 pounds. I think he was 240 to 250. That's at least 10 pounds heavier than what Arnold used to be.
Right.
So that means Arnold, if he comes in, he can compete in the Classic Olympia right now. If we have someone that looks like Arnold. Right? I'm lost. I'm lost, John. To me, it's all classic, man. You can still judge bigger guys with a smaller, shorter guys. You could, remember, for God's sake, how many times Lee Labrada was runner-up to Lee Haney? They were standing on stage next to each other.
Yeah.
And actually in Rimini, it could have gone either way. I mean, Labrada could have won in Rimini.
And
Haney was a little bit off.
Yeah.
You could still judge a guy like Labrada, who's like, I don't know, maybe at the most was 185. To Haney was almost 250 or 248. So why not?
That's why they should have, I think, they should go back to the 3 rounds of judging. They should have a symmetry round that's judged, and that score counts towards the final result. They should judge the mandatory poses like they do now, and they should judge the posing, and that score should also count toward the final result. Then you got 3 scores. Now you're looking at the body from 3 different things. You're looking at how can they present it with the posing, how does it look with the mandatory poses, and how does it look with the symmetry. Those 3 things are important in a physique, and they should all be judged, and all that score should count toward the final result. But you know why they don't do it? Because they got too many divisions and they can't spend the time to do 3 rounds. We just did, on my podcast, I just did a show about the 93 Olympia. They did the different rounds then. In the symmetry round, they did 22 comparisons. And then in the mandatory poses, they did 15 comparisons. Now that prejudging probably took 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Now prejudging takes 25 minutes.
It's so complicated now, man.
This year, I guarantee it'll be over in a half hour.
Yeah, I think it's those changes that kind of create the big difference in why we see what we're seeing today. Because it'd be a totally different story. And then even the worst thing for me is just how bad the posing rounds have gotten in comparison.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, that really, because that's such a big art part of it. If you're into that, that's a huge part of it. And then you can even see kind of that trickle down effect, both upwards and downwards. And even in the classic division, like with Wesley, it took Wesley so long to where he is the epitome of classic to me as well. He is incredible, and it just off of the size game, it took him a while to get to that, in the top ranks. And, Regan Grimes is somebody who is, I think, relatable in the sense of how they had a really pretty flowing physique. And now we see him having to get bigger and more, having to take that 2 years off and try to match up to the new crop. So, and some people's body, say it again.
I'm glad you mentioned the posing because, if you think about what bodybuilding is, and you know, you hear this debate all the time, like, oh, bodybuilders aren't athletes because when they get up on stage, all they do is pose. They're not doing anything athletic. Well, that's true, but they are athletes in the gym. They're athletes when they're training for the contest. You're absolutely an athlete. I mean, the hard training we do, not to mention the diet, is definitely an athlete. That's an athlete. But you're not an athlete when you get to the contest. When you get to the contest, you're an artist, and your art is presenting your physique. And if you think about bodybuilding, and I mentioned this before on the show, bodybuilding is the only sport in the whole world where what we do to prepare for the competition is different than what we do when we get to the competition, right? I mean, runners will practice running, and then they get to their contest and they run. Baseball players will practice playing baseball, and then when they get to their game, they play baseball. Bodybuilders train with weights, but when we get to the contest, we don't train with weights. We're not doing any training at the contest. All we're doing is presenting the physique we have. If you can't present that physique through your whole thing, then you're not doing your job as a bodybuilder. You're not presenting your physique. You get to the stage, and all that work you did, if you can't present it, then you're not fulfilling your duty as a bodybuilder. You're only half a bodybuilder, right? So that's why the posing is so important. And there's so much potential for greatness with posing. I mean that's your stage. You have a minute and a half on stage, and you have your physique, so you can do your poses, you can do your music, you can do your transitions, you can present it the way you want to present it. The possibilities are limitless. It's amazing what you can do on stage. And these guys aren't even tapping 10% of what they could do because they're not even working on it, which is ridiculous. I mean, that's your moment in the spotlight. It doesn't matter how much weight you lifted in the gym. It doesn't matter how long you dieted or how hard you dieted. It doesn't matter how much cardio you did. All that shit's back there. You're on stage now, and what you do on stage is all the work that you did. You have to present that. If you can't present that, then you're not showing us what you did. You're not showing the physique that you built, right?
I think you made a good point about like when you're posing, that it is truly your time. Like it is your minute and a half, your music. It is your moment to really. To me, I think it all goes back to the artistry. It's your time to go back to that artistry.
For God's sake, we need to know that. Sorry to cut you here, Marcus. Bodybuilding is a performing art. Okay?
Right.
How do you show your performing art without posing? Posing is major part of the game. You're performing art, the work that you built that great body. You should be judged on how to show it.
Right.
And it makes a huge difference. I mean, somebody has to really come in and say, judging bodybuilding, as an art, like you said, we're not lifting weight on stage. What we're doing, showing what we have worked on, what we developed, quality and harmony and beauty. It's all that. It's a physique contest, a beauty contest. It's, it's a sport and performing art.
And it's not about dancing or doing the splits or anything like that. You're presenting your physique. If you look at Mohammed Makawe and you look at Lee Labrada, that's the potential of what you can do on stage. Yes. And that's what you should be doing, and these guys, they're not even looking at that stuff anymore.
I feel like we should. I don't feel like. I think there's two whatevers to that. To where I feel like and this is my bias, but like someone like a Kai Green, that was his artistry. I feel like what he did, even though it was it was a lot of dancing, things like that. There's a difference between what Nexzilla just did on stage and like what dancing. He did. that was something else. But I do I think there's a place for like what Kai Green would do. Andrew Jack hitting the split, showcasing that back and forth. Doing
something different, but he was still presenting his physique.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it wasn't traditional. It was totally like nobody ever saw anything like that before.
Yeah.
But he was still like when he was spreading his legs and stuff, you could see his legs. I mean, you could see the development of his legs. So he was presenting what he had, and he was doing it in his own unique style.
Yeah. But I think that's what it's about. That minute and a half.
Dancing or breakdancing. That's not how you're presenting your physique by doing that. That's not good posing.
Yeah, unfortunately, some people do, do the monkey
They're
business on
entertaining
stage,
the
which
crowd,
is,
but they're not presenting their physique. The whole round is
and,
to
th-
present.
and that's why you're judging, and the mandatory. You do all the posing, put
Yeah.
all the top guys, do double bicep, do side tricep, do back, and then you could judge the body like that, and then score them on posing. Posing
Yeah.
is important.
And when you're scoring the posing, you're not just scoring the posing. You're scoring the physique and the posing. So if you get a guy
Exactly.
who's 15th place and he has a great routine, that doesn't mean he's going to place top five.
You're right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I meant
You
too.
still got the
So
other 2 rounds.
15th place physique that knows how to present his physique. So he should
you can't be like Fat Albert and doing a good posing
everything
routine.
else. The top 5 or 6 are probably going to still place in the top 5 or 6 because they have the physiques. It's just who of those guys presents their physique the best? Who does the best with the posing? And if they can't present it correctly, then they should be marked down for it. And if they can present it correctly, then they should be marked up for it.
So I've always championed fitness, like the fitness division for women's. I always really liked that class, and it still holds that same. They have the round where they do their routine, but then they also have their the posing round and all that. So I always my bias always held them at higher regard, like the Missy Trescott and all that.
I think that's 2/3 of the score, or 75% or something. So they're definitely rewarded for that.
Yeah. But they have to do their mandatory poses and all that as well. So
yeah.
I like that. I feel like, obviously with not all the gymnastics, but, bringing that back to the main stage would be, if we're doing it in fitness, and it's cool. I love it. I feel like we could still at least do the posing round nonetheless.
Well, that's
something.
Like I said, if you go back to what bodybuilding is, that's the origin of bodybuilding. That's the definition of bodybuilding. It's a sport and it's an art. The sport is in the preparation. The art is when you get on stage. There's no sport in it when you get. I mean, aside from holding the poses, which is hard, but you're not doing what you did prepare for the show. When you get on stage, you're an artist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you'll see us slowly leaving. That's why I really like when people bring their, like Samson. We see Samson, what he does with his, that the transitions and things like that. I feel like that's really that ode to the real, what it's supposed to be. And
He's
the
a
more
good
we
poser.
gravitate away from that, he's his own.
Samson is a very good poser. I see him when he posed. I mean, there's only one thing needed now. Is just if you give Nick Walker Samson positioning, he'll do great. And if you give Samson the quality of etched to the bone, Lord have mercy, it's going to be deadly. Then he might, I think he could win it. He's super shredded. So, well, anyway.
All right, guys. Well, we'll wrap it up here, and then next week we'll come back. We'll preview the Italy Pro Show, which Hunter Labrada is going in, and we'll have a better idea of who else is going in it then. So we'll do that next week.
Is that next weekend? Why Hunter is doing it? Isn't he qualified for the Olympia?
No, he wasn't in. Only top 3 qualify, so he's got to requalify.
Ah, okay. So he needs to be in the top 3 in that show to qualify, right?
No, he needs to win. He's got to win it.
Oh, if he didn't win the show, he won't be able to compete in the Olympia.
I think there's one more show after.
There's one more, yeah. So
yeah.
I see. Okay. I think he'll win.
All right, guys.
He looks like he's doing it.
Have a great Memorial Day weekend this weekend, and I'll be back next week.
Okay, guys. Good talking to you again.
See you guys.